In this video, we analyze the results from a poll I ran right here on YouTube a few days ago, asking retirees, what is the number one thing you worry about today? Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
There are times in our lives when all we see is bad news. Bad news, unfortunately, has taken the center stage for the better part of almost 3 years now for most of us. We've been through a pandemic, which unfortunately has a devastating effect on older adults. We have seen mental health issues jump manyfold, and unfortunately, we have had a front row seat right here from our homes to see all of it play out in real time. Worry seems to be everywhere. But the thing about worry is that once we realize we're not alone, it sometimes makes things better, maybe even dramatically better, because if we're not alone, that means there are people and forces working on correcting the issues at hand. This video is here to help you see what other retirees are worried about, so perhaps you can sleep a little bit better tonight knowing that you in fact are not alone. The data comes from a survey I ran right here on YouTube, and as of a few hours ago anyway, it had over 1,300 respondents. So it's pretty representative of the retirement community as a whole. The respondents were asked the question, retirees, what is your number one worry as of today? And the respondents were only allowed to answer once. This gives us great data because we are able to force rank people's top worry and in fact come up with a really nice pie chart about the top 5 number one worries based on the number of votes. And because everybody doesn't think the same, there were effectively 5 different categories where people voted for their number one worry. We're going to go through all 5 now. Let's see how you fare compared to some of them. The first and biggest category was the decline in retirement assets. A full 50% of the respondents chose this as their number one worry. Retirees have had a really bad half year when it comes to their retirement finances. 81% of retirees either fully or partially are invested in what's called an age-based portfolio or a target portfolio. A target portfolio simply means that you are targeting a particular year to retire and the investments become more and more conservative as you get closer to the big day. Unfortunately, most of these target portfolios are down 15, 16, even 17% or more as of the recording of this video, which is June 2022. This is because the traditional seesaw of bonds going up in value as equities are going down isn't working in an inflationary environment, at least not working well. The 10-year Us Treasury Yield started the year at 1.6%, meaning if you invested $100 in a US Treasury note in January, you would receive 1.6% per annum back, about $1.60 per annum back in your total return. As of Friday, June 17th, the return on the 10-year Treasury was 3.15%. Again, meaning that if you invested $100, you'd get a return of $3.15 per year over the next 10 years. What happens if you own the first bond paying $160 and today you decided you wanted to go out and buy a US Treasury and you had the choice of buying a US Treasury with a $1.60 return or a $3.15 return? You choose the $3.15 return every single time unless someone was willing to sell you the first bond for a discount or at a discount. And that's exactly why bond portfolios have gone down, because the bonds are already purchased. So when you look at a target-based fund that's part equity and part fixed income, part bonds, this is what's happening. The equity is going down and the bonds are going down as well. Concern number 2, coming in at 17%, is inflation, of course. The cost of living adjustment for 2021 was 1.3%. This was the culmination of the third quarter 2020 CPI index on average, and so the payment for 2021 became 1.3%. Yes, prices were going up. You could feel it in the wind. If you decided to book a hotel in January of 2021 for the end of year 2021, knowing that you would be vaccinated and be back on the beach, you'd note that the prices were quite a bit higher. You couldn't buy a car without paying an exorbitant price because the chips that went into cars weren't available, and on it went. Still, there was a view that this was temporary. It was termed transient inflation because the drivers of inflation were not the normal drivers. They were outside forces that were supposed to correct themselves. Pent-up demand, supply chain issues, labor shortages, all of those were supposed to check themselves as we all came out of lockdown and back into our normal day-to-day work. So how much and how long was TBD, but we did know at some point it was supposed to go back to normal, so nobody was too concerned. Today, inflation is closer to 9% than it is to 8%, and everything from the cost of fuel to the cost of a meal is going up and up and up. This is not good for people on a fixed budget whose investments are also going down. There are some things you can do to offset, and frankly, our ancestors had the answers all along. It's just that modern lifestyles today don't allow us, or haven't really created the necessity for us to tap into the skills of grandma and grandpa. Still, I'll be out with a video at some point soon entitled 10 Ways to Fight Inflation, and we're going to go back to the future to some degree with some of the things that our grandparents did to keep their costs in check. Affordable health care is number 3, coming in at 16%. By far the most frequent comment I get on this channel in the area of health care is that when the cost of living adjustment goes up, the cost of Medicare goes up as well, and that takes away from the COLA advantage. I'm talking about the cost of premiums, and I'm talking about the cost of the deductibles. In 2022, for example, the Part B premium went from $148.50 to $170.10. That's an increase of $21.60 a month and an increase of 15%. The Part B deductible went from $203 to $233. That is a $30 increase, and again, about a 15% increase. Co-payments for hospital stays, days 61 to 90, went from $371 to $389. Skilled nursing facility co-pays for days 21 through 100 went from $185.50 to $194.50. What's troubling, though, is that according to the April Consumer Price Index, April 2022, the medical care inflation number was up only 3.2%. And most of the costs we're talking about are up way over 3.2%, and they have a profound impact on someone in retirement. So what happened? A big part of the increase is said to be the approval of a drug called Aduhelm. Aduhelm is a $56,000 a year drug that helps fight Alzheimer's. And it doesn't take a lot of $56,000 claims for the cost of medicine to go up, even if medical inflation is running between 3 and 4%. Political division in this country was number 4, coming in at 13%. First, let me say that this channel does not take sides on political debates. It reports information to help you as a retiree or someone approaching retirement have a better retirement, but that's all. We will acknowledge, however, that both parties have extreme positions from time to time, and the language around these positions creates a lot of stress in the minds of people watching the news. These extreme positions, the rhetoric around these positions, the back and forth within families, seems to be taking a toll on the well-being of retirees. My advice to retirees, really to anyone, is to understand the things that you can navigate and the things that you can change. And navigate the navigable and change those that you can change, but don't confuse the two. Knowing which is really important to your own health and well-being. Something you can do, and frankly something I have done, is to go on a news diet. I turn off the automatic notifications on my phone, and I only read the newspaper daily. That's where I get my information, unless I'm doing research for a video or there's something that requires my immediate attention, which is rare when it comes to a lot of the information coming at us 24/7 from our computer screens. I stay away from the salacious stories that tend to make the news networks a lot of money and get our cortisol levels way up. Cortisol, by the way, is the hormone that creates the fight or flight reaction in people, and frankly, it causes a tremendous amount of stress. Stress is really bad for your health, particularly as you get older. So managing your stress triggers is really, really important. And number 5, a distant number 5, is the well-being of the rest of the family. There are basically 3 categories here: the well-being of one's spouse, the well-being of one's parents, and the well-being of one's children. The well-being of your spouse was a strong number 2 right behind the well-being of yourself. After all, this is your life partner, and keeping them around and healthy is important not only to them but also to you, because people do better in pairs in retirement as a general rule. Loneliness is a big risk as we get older. So keeping your spouse around and healthy is not only good for them, but it's good for you as well. The next category for retirees is parents. And frankly, as you enter retirement, there's a reasonable chance that one or both of your parents is still alive. As you get older, parents tend to make decisions that are not always in their own best interest. And frankly, sometimes they don't make decisions at all. They just put it off. This creates a lot of worry for the children of aging parents. And this is particularly true of the generation above, because that generation grew up thinking that they weren't going to live past age 65 or 70 in many cases. They certainly didn't think that they were going to live into their 80s or 90s. And if we're having this discussion today in 2022 and you're already retired or you're approaching retirement, they're probably in their 80s or 90s. Finally, the last category is the children. We will never stop being parents to our children no matter how old they get. And frankly, this generation seems to rely on its parents more than previous generations. Gone are the days of showing your children the door at 18 and wishing them good luck. Society is designed differently now, and an 18-year-old out in the world is not the same thing today as it was in the 50s and 60s. Today, children stage into adulthood, and parents make sure that they're to help them stage correctly. One of the commenters in the poll talked about failure to launch syndrome, where their 30-year-old is at home and looks like the person will be home for the foreseeable future. They indicated that that's not healthy either, and that they hope that their children will start to learn to stand on their own 2 feet sometime soon. In my next video, I discuss how retiring in Portugal may be the nuclear option to solve most, if not all, of your financial worries. So make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get alerted when I post that video and other videos as well. I post about twice a week. Also, check out this video on the average 401k balance of a 60-year-old at June of 2022. I released that video just a few days ago, and it is turning out to be one of my most popular videos on the channel. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.